Hi everyone, I've got Katie Lauder with me today. We're going to have a chat about the Director of Sport conference. Katie's at the Director of Sport at Downe House. I've been down there. It's a great program. Really enjoyed it. So, Katie, first of all, thanks for thanks for joining us.
No, thank you. It's always nice to sort of revisit the last few days, have a reflect on what we
Yeah.
took away.
So obviously, as I said to you, I'm the eternal optimist. I really enjoyed the conference. I thought it was really, the conversations, the vibe, if you like. But before we get into some detail, what's been your overall feeling and sort of standout impression of the last few days of the conference?
Yeah, I think I've been to the conference a couple of years now. Before I was a director of sport, actually, and I have grown in confidence at the event because it's a lot of people in a space, especially if you're a new director of sport stepping into it for the first time. But I found this year to be really open. I think the industry as a whole, I think we always have been, PE teachers are like that, but I did find so much collaborative talk happening. Um, you know, People discussing things with people they've never met before, being very willing to meet new people and discuss things. So I really enjoyed that element. I think someone mentioned that, oh, does it need to be at this time of year? But it's always busy. We're always busy. And I think
Yeah,
when we're in the busyness, we think, oh, like summer term will be quiet. But it's not in reality.
yeah,
Um, and so I know lots of director of sports had kind of their minds there, but they also had their minds on events, competitions that were happening naturally. And when you're out of school, you're obviously not doing your normal work. But I do think it's really important to step out and away. And I was talking to another director of sport how, the department's fine. They can sort of crack on without you. And it is really valuable 2 days to kind of think bigger picture,
yeah,
kind of strategy stuff, step away from fighting the everyday fires and think about your, like you said, your program in X number of years' time. And you need to sometimes not be physically in school to have the time and space to do
yeah.
that. So, wherever it falls, it's going to be a busy period of year, but it is really, really important to kind of take those 2 days for yourself and your school and your department and all the things you're trying to do. So,
Yeah, I agree. I think I said, I think that's the director of sport world superpower, isn't it? We're very good at collaborating and talking together. And, we had 260 people there Thursday and Friday. You wouldn't have 260 history teachers, maths teachers. So that genuinely, I think, is a fantastic product of our industry. So
mm.
for you personally, Katie, what speaker or session had the biggest impact and what do you think was your key takeaway?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. So the Thursday has obviously evolved over the last few years. I think it used to maybe just be a 1 day conference, I'm not sure. And then the
Yeah.
Thursday kind of got introduced, I think, maybe born out of people that were traveling and staying and can we
Mm.
put something on for them. But I found the whole Thursday schedule and the amount it's grown to be really, really helpful, especially kicking off with kind of really relevant forum to start with on things that people had sent in, I always dread that microphone being chucked at me though every year.
I dread chucking it.
Um, but yeah, and obviously all the mini breakout forums were great. So I did enjoy the conversation starters on Thursday, and I thought it kicked off the whole conference in a great way.
Mm.
Um, I also really enjoyed Friday morning was a lot of people talking,
Mm.
but what I really enjoyed about that, especially with Jamie and Jeeva's talk, was there wasn't like a million things that I thought I'm going to put that into my school as such. But it was really nice to just sit back and listen for the sake of listening, if that makes sense, and just
Yeah,
learn from two people in completely different fields, um, talk so passionately and just kind of that what they were talking about, their energy was the most infectious thing rather than necessarily I wasn't like writing loads of things that I want to bring into Down House, but it was just
yeah,
their energy more than anything and how they spoke was something that I took away. So I really enjoyed just being a consumer for a little
yeah,
bit rather than
yeah,
being really heavy thinking.
yeah.
So it was nice.
I agree. I thought they were inspiring, and I think
Mm.
you do need a bit of that sometimes. Do we all need to go back to school
Yeah.
re-energized and realize that if you speak about your subject with that passion and that energy, it is going to have an effect on people, isn't it?
Yeah. And I'm jealous of the northern accent.
So one of the big things of the conference was sort of, if you like, the higher purpose of sport
Mhm.
beyond performance and results. So how did you see that day, the messages around that landing for you? And again, how would you suggest directors of sport maybe take that back to their
Yeah.
schools?
Yeah, I know that because we've touched on this in the past. Like, I think in schools and in past conferences, I think we naturally fall into listening to people from the professional sporting background as such, where they've been competing for their country or whatever, and which, whilst is really, really inspiring, I think it's, and actually I've seen a push from my students at Downe. We do a evening speaker, and they were like, we don't really want to hear from a professional athlete. We want to hear from someone that's been involved in, they've gone in through journalism or they've gone in through business, or and they're someone who's married up their love of sport with X something about else. So I think definitely it's gone in that direction, which is really useful because it breaks away from thinking, oh yeah, but I'm not teaching any professional
Yeah.
athletes. I'm teaching however many school children. So I really liked kind of that aspect. And, you know, our programs, like you said, are so multifaceted and we have so many hats on in one go, and we're teaching such a variety of students and dealing with a wide variety of parents, etc., etc. So I think it's good to kind of have that variety reflected within the forum,
Yeah.
within the conference itself and the breakout forums. So yeah, I thought it was there was lots of things that were relevant for every different type of school, really.
I think you're right, and actually, I'm obviously the Kath Bishop's biggest fan, but she says that to me a few times when we invite people in for our, scholars or our sports dinner. Why do we always invite the gold medalist? Why don't we invite the person who came ninth
Yeah,
or the person who didn't qualify? Because they've probably got just as interesting a story. Or why don't we invite back, a 25-year-old former pupil who actually has done 250 park runs and isn't
yeah,
but the effect that playing sport has had on their life and
mm,
working as a team and all that sort of thing. I agree. We need to sort of broaden our horizons a little bit,
yeah,
don't we?
yeah, definitely.
And what about sort of practical strategies? Was there one or a number of practical strategies you think, yeah, when I come back to school, I'm going to implement that?
Yeah, I think I've worked really hard on the strategic side of things, especially in the last year or so. Sort of got my feet going a little bit more in the role and could kind of have that breathing space to do that. So I enjoyed having that space, but it was great to hear about from Aaron from Mill Hill,
Yeah,
talking about the study that he'd done. And it's literally the data is sat there saying everything that we say, but
yeah,
supported by data. And I think
agreed,
that's the issue that a lot of us have. We know what we're saying is right and we believe it, but people just think we're saying it because we like sport.
agreed.
And I found sort of the similar with the from Baz talking from the COO's perspective in terms of the financial side. I think we can all be guilty of saying we need
Yeah,
a new Astro, and they go, yeah, 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 whatever. But actually, if you can give the data and the information, you've done the research and all the background stuff, it just supports what you're saying. And I think it can be frustrating because you're like, why don't you just believe me when I say it?
yeah,
But, people have got to make informed decisions. And so it is our job to kind of gather that information and have that informed process in that way. And so I found that a really
yeah,
those talks that were talking about those sorts of aspects, I find those really useful for actually coming back. And the same as what you were saying about alumni. And I'm a big person saying like my program is successful if people are doing lifelong da da da. But actually, I haven't put my money where my mouth is.
yeah,
I need to reach out to the alumni a little bit more. And even just when I went into school on Saturday, I spoke to one of our assistant heads whose daughters used to go to the school. And she asked about me being out at the conference and what I'd taken away. And her daughters, whilst they were involved in school sport, they weren't like the sporty kids essentially.
yeah,
But, I hate that word, but they were always involved, but weren't like on scholarships and things.
yeah.
But one of them, for example, loves her journalism and she's at Nottingham and she's doing kind of this weekly podcasty broadcast commentary thing. And we
Brilliant.
opened a conversation up between us and she's sending me the link so I can listen to her and she's left school.
Yeah,
So it did make me think I need to, and I
yeah,
followed a few ex-students on Strava now. So I'm
yeah,
little
yeah, yeah.
steps, but I will think about how I can bring that in bigger picture and more long
Yeah.
term as well.
I
Yeah.
think, as I said to everyone, most alumni officers will be delighted to do this. Imagine if you sent a survey out to your 25-year-olds or 30-year-olds, it only have to be 5 questions, and
Yeah.
then you could have some clear evidence, couldn't you? And I think,
Yeah.
especially SLT, they want evidence. And there was that sort of slide, I remember I showed that we're very good at showing the link to our participation, but
Hmm.
we need to be, I think, a bit smarter in showing the link towards, as Aaron's done, exam results, attendance,
Yeah.
behavior,
Yeah.
and actually how those characteristics of sport have helped them when they're 25 and 30s. I
Yeah.
think you're right. That data piece is
Yeah.
going to
And it
help us
made me think,
persuade people.
yeah, like how can we marry up those certain things? So
Yeah.
each year, like when our girls get announced in terms of like head seniors and
Mm.
prefects and things like that, a lot of them
Yeah.
are playing sport in some capacity at school because
Yes.
they are learning the skills that will
Yeah.
teach. You know, again, it's one of those, we know that,
Yeah.
but how can we link up, the slide that you put up about all the top skills that, was it from the World Economic Forum or
Yeah.
something, saying
Yeah.
about employing in businesses what they're looking for? Like, how can we link up like what Aaron's done in his research with those
Yeah.
qualities? And how can we join all the pieces for people beyond directors of sport and PE
Yeah.
teachers who kind of already know it's happening? But
Yeah.
yeah, it's the evidence piece.
And obviously, we spoke about this. One thing that always strikes me is the generosity of directors of sport with sharing ideas. So I was
Yeah.
just curious, well, was there one particular conversation with someone that stuck with you? You don't have to name their name, or you can, but was there, oh, that was a really cool conversation, and I got a
Yeah,
great
I had a
idea.
few on different, some personal levels, some professional
Yeah,
levels. So, and I've spoken to you about this about, I do think more needs to be done supporting women returning to the workforce from
yeah,
after maternity leave. I know it's like a personal thing of mine, but I connected with two other directors of sport who have just returned from maternity leave as well. The
yeah,
conversation was between two talks, and so it literally was like, "Oh yeah, are you finding
yeah,
this? Are you finding this?" Really, really
yeah,
quick, and then had to refocus. Um, but it's kind of made that initial connection of people who are in the same job as me
yeah,
who can relate. And so that was really nice. A couple of good chats about A level, good
yeah,
and bad,
yeah,
and actually made a connection in terms of helping each other out with footage and things. And then, yeah, after Jeeva's talk as well with a couple of other directors of sport, just around how to we were discussing how girls maybe tend to drop sport a little bit more when it comes to the
mm,
revision time of year, which I know
mm,
we're all coming up to, and what strategies are people taking to try and keep them involved. So just little snippets of conversation
yeah,
really that were kind of the key takeaways because then you'll break off and go in various different directions. So it's the chats over the coffees and the lunch times and the
yeah.
in-between bits that are really valuable. So
And I think the personal ones are actually very important, aren't they? It's not
yeah,
all strategic and A level and my netball team.
yeah,
Actually, how are you getting on? I'm
yeah,
really struggling with this. I'm feeling down about this, or I'm coming back from having a baby, or whatever it may be. I think
yeah,
those personal conversations are actually really, really important because,
yeah.
it shows we care about each other and other people are in the same boat.
Yeah, and I reconnected with someone I did my PGC with,
Oh,
however many years
brilliant.
ago now.
Yeah,
She's
yeah,
now director of sport, opposite ends of the country, but
yeah.
we sat down and had breakfast together and,
Lovely. Yeah,
had a good catch up and how you're
yeah,
finding it and reminiscing about how long ago PGCE was and now we've got PGCE students, etc.
yeah,
So that was a nice thing as well. So
yeah. Brilliant. Well, I
yeah.
think finally, Katie, if you had one takeaway from the conference to directors of sport who weren't able to make it this
Mhm.
year, what would it be and why do they need to come next year?
I think it's yeah, budgets are tight,
Yeah.
time is poor, and I think it's easy to say we can't afford it or I don't have the time. But you have to,
Mm,
we have to think about not this isn't just professional development for ourselves, it's professional development for our whole sector.
mm,
It goes beyond the school you're at now. It will help, further job progressions. You hopefully people take things away and feed it back into their schools. So hopefully it's a circular motion of,
mm.
picking up information, feeding it back in, learning from it, and we evolve and go forward. So to not see it as just a 2 days out,
Yeah,
it's a much bigger picture than that. So try and justify the cost if you can, and try and justify the time
yeah,
if you can. So, you've got to be there to have those connections, to grow as an individual and, to see what else is out there and to kind of question and learn and go, actually, I didn't really agree with that. And, sometimes you take away something good and say, like, oh, we're actually 5, 6 steps ahead of where we thought we were, and sometimes it's good to get a balance of things that you could do and things that you already are doing. So, yeah, try and find the time and try and make the money.
Brilliant. Thanks, Katie. And I look forward to seeing you at our knowledge exchange event in the summer.
Yeah.
Thanks for hosting that. But as I say,
No,
thanks for your time this morning. Great to get a bit of feedback. As I said, feedback's a gift. We all want to get better, and hopefully, some people who weren't there have gained a bit from your
yeah.
chat. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.